Hey everyone, my name is Christian McGlade with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, and on this week's Real Estate Deep Dive, I wanted to talk about a topic that has got a lot of attention in the industry recently, and it's ever so changing, and that topic is inventory. We're seeing a lot more of it, and it's helping buyers. So I will jump right into it right now. I want to get behind some of the data when it comes to inventory. So let me share my screen. All right, go back to the beginning of the PowerPoint here. So I wanted to start off with a quote, and this quote is from Michael Lane from Showing Time. It says, "Conditions for buyers are less competitive than they were last year at this time. While a general increase in available inventory in most markets has not only given buyers more options to consider, but more time to consider them." So what this means is that if you felt like the market was just too much over the past few years, there was too much competition, maybe you wanted to sit on the sidelines to wait it out, well, this is your time to jump back in. Most likely you would have more options to choose from and more time to make that choice. All right, so this graph represents, and it's represents the nation, so nationwide. This graph represents how many showings there have been per month. So going back all the way from January of 2021, all the way up to July of this year, which is the most recent data, and this is presented by Showing Time. So we see April, May, June, July. There's been a steady decrease in the number of showings according to the Showing Time Monthly Showing Index. And what that means is, well, there's less interest among buyers right now. A lot of that has to do with the rising mortgage rates. In the middle of the pandemic, the lowest was in the twos, and now they're in the fives, sometimes sixes. So that's a large reason why we're seeing less showings and less interest among buyers. All right, we'll go to the next slide here. So this is the same index from Showing Time, but what this represents is this is a number of showings each July of the past 6 years, including this year. So if we're taking a look here, 2022 July is the green bar on the right. We can see that it's less than the pandemic years, 2020 and 2021. So there is less buyers interested in seeing homes than there was during the pandemic, but there's still more than the pre-pandemic years. So if we're looking at 2017, 18, 19, these numbers are still lower compared to that of this year. So while the interest among buyers has diminished compared to the previous 2 years, we're still above what it was 2017, 18, and 19. And here's a quote to kind of drive that home. "The year-over-year dip in buyer activity follows a general market rebalancing that's taking place across the country as available inventory increases while fewer buyers actively shop for homes." And if we're talking about a regional level, the part of the country that we're seeing cool down the most quickly is the West. So California, Oregon, Arizona, Washington. This isn't the West, but also Texas. And we're going to show you a map in a second here. Those are the ones that we're seeing cool down the most. And that's because those were the hot spots during the pandemic when it comes to real estate. All right, so this graph shows us that active inventory is increasing dramatically, and it's monthly listings in the thousands. So if we're looking at this year, May, June, July, August, we see that steady increase in inventory. And the next slide we're going to see actually is going to kind of dive into this deeper, that really shows where the inventory is coming from. So there are two bars on this graph. The blue bars represent active listings, so homes that are already on the market. The green bar represents new listings, so homes that just hit the market. As we can see, June, July, August, there's actually a decrease in new listings and an increase in active listings. So what this means is that while there are fewer homes hitting the market right now, the ones that are hitting the market are staying on the market longer, which is why we're seeing an increase in active listings. So that just kind of goes to explain further this chart that we're seeing right here. And I love a good map. I am a map nerd. My name's Christian McGlade, and I'm a mapaholic. These maps are the year-over-year change in inventory. So looking at May, June, July, and then now August, which is the recent data we have. So we can see August, the national average is that there's 26.6% more inventory than there was this time last year. So that's a good thing for buyers. Now looking at California, California's at 50%. So we're seeing a significant amount of more inventory out here out west than we were last year. So again, 26% more year over year for the national average. We're in the 50s for California. As I was saying before, the West was a hot spot during the pandemic, and we're the first ones to cool down. Homes nationally are still increasing in value, just at a lesser rate. But out west in California, we're actually seeing some depreciation. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. Different ball game than 2008. We can get into that another time, but buyers are getting more leverage. As I was saying about the buyer leverage, that means they have more room for negotiation. So 41% of sellers accept some contingencies in the contract. Now, looking at the past couple of years, there were so many offers being written by buyers, removing the inspection contingency, removing the appraisal contingency, including a large appraisal gap by the buyers. We're just not seeing as much of that now. So this means that the buyer's deposit is likely more protected if they're keeping their contingencies intact this year. So 32% of sellers dropped the price because it didn't meet the appraisal. Again, when comparing during the pandemic, we were seeing a lot of that appraisal contingency being removed, or the buyers making up the difference if it appraised below what the contract price was. Now we're starting to actually see more sellers drop the price, meet in the middle, because sellers, while they still have leverage, they have less leverage than they have this past year or two. Down here, 29% of sellers paid for repairs to the home after the appraisal. That's an increase from last year, which is good news for the buyers. And 32% of sellers paid for some or all of the buyer's closing costs. What was a common trend the past several years is that buyers were paying most or all of the closing costs, especially in the Sacramento region. That is shifting. All right, so taking a look at this, what this graph represents, so we're looking at the week ending September 2nd. If we look at the blue bar, what this means is that that same week in 2021, right now, there's 26% more inventory. However, when comparing 2020 and especially 2019, we still have less inventory compared to those 2 years. So while we are seeing more inventory compared to this time last year, this is a national level, by the way, we are still not at the same level as we were in 2020 or especially 2019. We're 42% lower than we were in 2019. So buyers do have more leverage, but we still aren't at that same inventory level as we were a couple years ago. And this is a quote that really drives everything home. While fewer new listings are entering the market, overall inventory continues to grow, providing more choice to buyers who are still shopping for a home. If you weren't finding the home out there for you, well, now there's more options. This fall, a more moderate pace of home selling, more listings to choose from, and softening price growth will provide some breathing room for buyers searching for a home during what is typically the best time to buy a home. So this really drives this presentation home. We are seeing that shift right now. Nationally, we are still a seller's market. The Sacramento region, it's really neighborhood by neighborhood. As I mentioned, the West is cooling very quickly. Here's an analogy. Instead of going 90 miles an hour on the freeway, now we're just going 70. So in a lot of regions, it still is a seller's market, just not like it was the past 2 years, and the buyers are enjoying a little bit more breathing room and leverage. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen here. I just want to thank you all for listening to this. If you or any of your friends and family have any questions about the market, what the process looks like, we can do a no pressure consultation, go over a few things, see what options are out there for you. Give me a call, email me. I'd be more than happy to discuss. So thank you again. My name is Christian, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, guys. Have a good one.